You've made the changes, maybe you've set boundaries, switched jobs, ended relationships that weren't working, and yet something still feels off, like you're not fully yourself. Here's what might be going on. You're still playing a role you've been rehearsing for decades, and you don't even realize it. These roles aren't obvious, they're subtle, comfortable, often praised, and that's what makes them hard to spot. Over time, they start to feel like your personality, even if they're quietly draining your energy and authenticity. Today I'm breaking down 5 roles people tend to slip into, especially in midlife, that may have once served you, but might be holding you back now. These aren't character flaws, they're survival strategies, but at this stage of life, they might be getting in the way of who you're actually becoming. Number 1, the fixer. Someone mentions a problem, and before they're even done talking, you're already building a solution in your head. Your reflex is identify issue, fix it, move on. This might show up as adult kids calling whenever something breaks, or being the one coworkers turn to whenever a project goes sideways. You probably learned early that being helpful kept things calm, or that your value came from solving other people's problems. And to be fair, it made you reliable, competent, someone others count on. But I know from experience, it's also exhausting. While you're busy managing everyone else's mess, your own goals, the home project, the health change, that creative thing you've been putting off, all stay on the back burner. And sometimes it's good to keep in mind people don't even want a solution. They want to be heard. Constant fixing can actually create distance instead of connection. It might be worth considering that usefulness and worth aren't the same thing. Sometimes just being present says more than solving ever could. Number 2, the chameleon. It's normal to show up a little differently in different settings. We all do that. That's just being socially aware. But if you're constantly shape-shifting to keep the peace or earn approval, it starts to chip away at your sense of self. At work, you're professional. Around your partner's family, you play it safe. With friends, you're maybe a little more laid back, but still filtering. Not exactly lying, but just editing yourself. None of it feels fake at first, but over time, it starts to feel like you're drifting, like you're losing the thread of who you actually are, because you're always adjusting to the room you're in. You pause before you speak, not because you're thinking, but because you're scanning. What version of me is safest here? That role usually starts early. Maybe you learned that staying likable kept things calm, or that being agreeable got you the validation you needed, but the cost is real. It gets harder to tell which parts of you are genuine and which are just performance. And if this sounds familiar, you might ask yourself whether adapting is still helping, or if it's starting to blur the edges of who you really are. Number 3, the achiever. You measure days by output, weeks by goals hit, years by milestones achieved. Even, quote, relaxing tends to come with a checkbox. Books read, miles run, projects completed. You're the one gunning for that next promotion, even though your current role already takes everything you've got. Or maybe you get twitchy during downtime, like you're wasting time if you're not doing something productive every minute. This role usually forms when recognition is tied to performance, or when security came from staying busy, striving, pushing. You probably became successful, driven, focused, but now you might be running full speed on a treadmill that's not going anywhere. Achievement isn't the enemy, but when it becomes your identity, it can crowd out joy, connection, even health. You might just take a step back and ask, what if peace didn't have to be earned? What if it was something you were already allowed to have? Number 4, the buffer. You don't fix problems, you absorb emotions. You're the one managing the energy in the room, smoothing tension, watching for signs of friction, and heading it off before it even starts. It might look like softening your message until it loses impact, or playing mediator at family gatherings, or feeling worn out after a simple social event, because without even realizing it, you've been carrying the emotional load. This role often forms in unpredictable environments. Maybe you grew up around someone whose moods kept you on alert. Or maybe you learned that peace meant absorbing the discomfort yourself. You became perceptive, attuned, empathic, but at a cost. Other people's emotional weight wasn't meant to be your full-time job. And if this resonates with you, you might try noticing when you start carrying what isn't yours. It could be worth asking, what would it feel like not to? Number 5, the reliable one. You show up, you follow through, you never drop the ball. People count on you. And honestly, they probably don't even think to check if you're okay. You're the one who remembers the birthdays, keeps the group text going, does the heavy lifting at work, and rarely, if ever, asks for help. This usually forms when stability was lacking. Maybe you learned that you couldn't count on others, so you had to become the one that everyone could count on. Steady, the rock. But rocks don't get asked how they're doing, they just support. And if that hits close to home, maybe ask yourself, who checks on the reliable one? And why shouldn't that include you? These roles aren't bad. They helped us function, maybe even helped us succeed. But midlife is a chance to ask, do they still fit? Am I playing a version of myself that no longer feels right? This isn't about dramatic reinvention. It's about small, honest shifts towards something more aligned. It might mean saying, hey, I don't have a fix for that, but I'm here for you, instead of jumping into that problem-solving mode. It might mean voicing an honest opinion at a family gathering instead of just blending in. It might mean leaving work on time or a little bit early even, without feeling the need to explain yourself at times. These moments might feel awkward, but that awkwardness, that's the edge of growth. That's where the old script ends and something real begins. Let me know in the comments which role felt most familiar to you, and what's one way, big or small, you've started to step out of it. If this hit home for you, please subscribe for more content on navigating midlife with clarity and purpose. I do appreciate your time. I'll see you at the next one.